Hi, thank you for joining me. So this week I've been hearing a lot about the word earthbound, and I know everyone's going to have a different perception about what they believe because we are programmed to believe certain things depending on religious beliefs, depending on what families have brought people up believing. They can believe in black magic, they can believe in demons, they can believe in curses being put on somebody. It depends on the belief system that's been taught. Everyone's going to have a different perception. So we can only ever go on our own experiences, and for our own experiences, it's always going to be true for us because it feels real. But I question earthbound because when we pass away, we are a ball of energy. We can move anywhere. We are not restricted by anything physical because, like this pen that is physical is dense, like it's solid. So if I'm just an air, I can't pick that up. My fingers are going to go straight through. Every time I try to pick something up, it'll meld. My energy will become part of the energy of the pen, and I can't actually pick it up, but I may be able to move it with my energy and the energy of the pen and a force, like a magnetic type force, or I could make the pen roll, but I can't actually physically pick it up. So how do you have something become, a spirit become earthbound, if you can't contain it? How do you hold energy and make it stick in one place if it can't be contained by anything? You can't lock it into a jar because then the energy becomes part of the jar and then can escape it anyway. Energy can walk through doors because they become the energy of that soul, becomes part of the energy of the door, and they just go straight through. There is nothing to restrict the energy. So how can it become bound to anything? I think where the mistake comes in is energy can be, there's an imprint that's left of that life, but it's not the entire 100% of that life. Every single soul returns back to the dimension, to the realm that they are at that level. Depending on the life they've lived, they return to a source energy. They don't get stuck here on earth. They can come and go. They can visit, they can leave. And if you can recall back to when I've talked about before, there's those different levels. So we've got earth level, there is a level below earth, there is earth level, there is a level just above, and they keep going up. The higher they go, the less dense they are. So if you've got somebody who is living on this earth who is angry all the time, angry, they complain about everything, they are negative, they live in total fear, they might have toxic traits, they have all this heavy, dense energy in their body. When they pass away, there's only about 10% that remains as the record of the life that was lived. The other 90% moves on to go into a different life. It's not the whole 100% of your life moves to another life. There is like a segment of it. So if that 10% that's left is still connected to that dense energy that they created on earth, you're going to feel that. That's where you can walk into a place and feel like there is a negative energy in there, or what they call ghosts, what they call spirits or poltergeists. So you imagine if there was a really, really angry person that couldn't contain their anger. So when they exploded, they would slam doors or throw things across the room, or they would be disruptive all the time and abusive to people around them. When that person dies and that energy that was so dense stays in that place, having someone else coming into that thing, they're going to feel it. And they're going to feel it, and then that they can add fear to it, and then their fear escalates the other fear, and then they can, you know, still keep having like poltergeist type movements, things. Have you ever come across an angelic, really high light being throwing things? Like, how do they get your attention? How does your loved ones, like your loving grandparents, your loving parents, your loving siblings, your loving friends that have passed over, have they ever thrown things, slammed cupboards, and been poltergeist type energies? No. But what? Why? They have the ability to do that. It's just that they're on a different level. They're on more an enlightened level. They're higher up, and they will find different ways, calmer ways, more loving ways to bring signs to you without having to be in that dense energy. So there is no such thing, I don't believe, as earthbound. I don't believe you can contain energy like that. If you know a way that you can contain energy and hold it, and so that it's not free to travel everywhere, you let me know how that works, because I don't see how that can work. And if you think about it, like if there's only, so your life today, when you're born, all your experiences, and when you die, that's all contained in a record of who you are. Only about when you've got passed over, there is that, it's contained, that life is contained. So there's like 10% of the soul is held in that life, but the other 90% can go on and live another life, so it can reincarnate. So that way you can be living a new life, and you can still connect back into that 10% that's left on the other side. Because if the whole 100% of your soul dies, let's say you were living in the 1800s and you lived this life and you died, and then you came back again in the 1900s, if 100% of that soul came back into your body, how could anybody tap back into that life in the 1800s? They wouldn't be able to. There has to be a part of that life left there, and then a part moved into the new life. Because energy can be split, like twin flames. Twin flames are when you've got an energy that splits in half, and one goes one way and one goes the other way. And they have different experiences, but they started off in the same energy, because we are all connected. So like my experience with my mum, because she had multiple sclerosis, she couldn't move her legs, so she was in a wheelchair, and she spent most of her days, especially for the last 20 years of her life, just sitting in her recliner. So she'd be lifted out of bed, put in her recliner, and that's basically where she spent the day. But she lived in a lovely home with a beautiful view of a lake, so it was nice for her. She had a lovely scenery to look at. She'd sleep a lot. She was always in her chair, and you know, she was cared for. We would bring her food, her meals, and she would be dressed and always cared for. But because she was continually in that chair, when she did finally pass away, and she passed away at home, her energy is going to be very intense in that chair, because she spent every single day of her last 20 years in that chair. So yes, her energy is going to be very, very dense in that spot. It didn't move. She didn't move around. So after she had passed away, my dad found it very distressing to still be in the same home, because he was so used to her being in that chair, and now she wasn't there, and that was upsetting him. So he asked I don't know, some psychic guy from the south of Adelaide. He asked him to come down and clear her spirit and send her to the light. And I didn't want to have anything to do with it, because my dad firmly believed that her spirit was stuck in that chair. I knew she'd gone back, and she was with our soul family. She was back with her mum and her dad, her relatives that have passed. I knew where she was, but my dad was convinced, because of his belief system, that her energy was still in the chair. And yet at the same time, I was talking to someone else I know who lives in New South Wales, who did a lot of energy work, and she was saying that my mum's spirit was visiting her. So I'm thinking, well, how can my mum's spirit be stuck in the chair, like this other psychic guy is saying, and then another person saying she's over in New South Wales, and I was feeling that she was with her relatives on the other side. So I thought, well, obviously she can move around. Like, if the person in New South Wales swore that she had my mum's energy there, then she probably did. And the psychic guy who said that mum's spirit was in the chair, he probably felt that, because she was everywhere. You're not restricted. Energy is everywhere. It's not contained. It's not restricted. So in a way, everybody was right in what they were feeling with my mum. But when the psychic guy had to say, he was telling my dad that he had to remove her from the house and send her to the light, that's when I thought, no, that's your ego. That's your ego thinking you are some form of God, where you can control where spirits go and you can save spirits. That's not how it works. We can help, we can communicate with spirits, we don't control them, because if anyone starts thinking they do, then that's their ego talking. So Mum was not bound to this earth, she was not bound to that chair. So whenever you hear someone talking about Earthbound, question it. Question how can you contain that energy? Because it'd be interesting to find out how they think you can contain energy. There's a light there. If I turn the light on and there's energy radiating out, can I contain that energy? Can I grab some of this energy and then put it into a jar and hold it? No, I can't. So yeah, think again before you hear someone talking about something being earthbound. Also, a question that was raised was about, when does the soul actually enter the body? From my experience, when I'm doing readings and connecting to the other dimensions, and I see grandparents that have passed away holding souls or caring for souls that are about to enter into this earth, it'll be a relative of theirs, but they're going to come into the physical body. So they quite often tell me that this is going to be born. This child is going to be born. The soul, the energy of that being doesn't enter the fetus upon conception. But at the point of conception, when a mother finds out that she's pregnant, she becomes so connected to that child. The love connects, the bond is already there, but she's connecting to the soul that's on the other side, just as she would be connecting to a relative that's on the other side. That love bond is created, but it doesn't mean the soul is inside her with her soul. They're still separate. And then after about 3 months of pregnancy, there's the first trimester, and that's when the fetus is forming, and the fetus is growing, and the fetus is making sure it's going to be healthy. And in that 3 months, a lot of the times the fetus is not growing properly and it is miscarried. And the soul, I've seen souls watching the progress of, so they are waiting to enter the body, like enter the fetus, but if they can see that that fetus is not forming properly, they're not going to enter it, because there's no point. There's no point in entering it and then leaving again, because that soul's just going to, that fetus is going to miscarry. But the mother feels as though she's connected to the soul, because it's there waiting. So yes, there is that connection, but it's not physically fully immersed in the fetus. Then between 4 months to 6 months, in that second trimester, the soul can enter into the fetus, but it can also leave. It can come and go. And it depends on the level of awareness of that soul as to how they do that. So if it's a soul that hasn't had years and years and years and years of lifetimes, it might come in at 4 months and stay there until birth. If it's a highly evolved soul and it's lived many, many, many lifetimes, it may come in and go, or leave it till later before it comes into the physical body. But it's not fully 100% immersed into the fetus until moments before birth. Right before birth is when there is a total full engagement of that soul, and that is when all memory is wiped out. So you come in with it's like a fresh, clean slate to live this lifetime. If you do a past life regression and you are hypnotized and go back through past life regression, which I have done a few times, you can go back into when you were in the fetus, and you will start to see, you'll understand yourself when you connected fully into the life that you're living today, when you came and went and you were still connected to the other side. So I know, like I've had 5 miscarriages in my lifetime. I know each time that I became pregnant, I was connected to that soul. I knew that soul was not fully immersed in the fetus. I knew it was just physically, energetically connected to me. When I miscarried, I still felt that soul there. Now, some of those souls did not come back. Some of those souls didn't come, because I had 10 pregnancies, 5 live births and 5 miscarriages. Those 5 miscarriages didn't come back again to like, I know a lot of people call them rainbow children, because that gives a great deal of comfort, doesn't it? If you've connected to a soul, you don't want to lose that soul, so you want them to come, you want them to come back. If that's a belief system of yours, then that works for you. My 5 miscarriages didn't come back. They stayed on the other side. Now, I didn't mention my miscarriages. I didn't really talk about them much with my children that are alive, because they were so young, they didn't understand. When my last son was born, I think he was about 4 years of age, and he was out playing and he was talking to someone. You know, he was out in the sandpit and he was talking, having a conversation, but there was no physical person there. He was sitting there by himself. And I said, "Oh, who are you talking to?" And he said, "Oh, my brother that didn't get born." And so he knew that there was this spirit that had stayed connected to us energetically, but he wasn't going to ever come back and be born physically. But they can stay connected. I think we get confused because we think because we can't see something physically, or we've lost it, that we've lost the connection with the soul. But energy is always connected to energy, always. And if you think about it also, at the end of your life, if you're someone who's like an elderly person, you can speak to anyone who works in palliative care or who's a nurse who's seen a lot of people dying. They will tell you when a person is nearing their death, they know, and they start speaking, they start seeing in the room people that have already passed over, that have come to visit them to take them home. So they go in between a state of, they float between being here in the physical and then leaving their body and being with those that are welcoming them back home again. So they come and go, much like a soul can come and go in a fetus. At the birth time, at the death time, the same thing can happen. The soul can come and go in and out of the body. And you can have out-of-body experiences. You can be in such a deep meditation that your soul leaves your body and you go astral traveling, you go to a different place, you can see something else unfolding, and because the cord is attached to your body still, you will come back. It's only when you're not coming back anymore, that cord is disconnected and your soul doesn't have to come back into that physical body anymore. When it's dead, it's dead and the soul has moved on. But any other time you can have out-of-body experiences, you can have near-death experiences, you can be in a deep meditation and leave your soul can leave your body and it can come back. So it's not, see how energy is not restricted, but people kind of think it is restricted. They're thinking of it in a physical terms. So what else did I write down? I think a lot of this subject depends on how you've been brought up. There are certain cultures that believe in black magic. So they believe that you can have curses put onto you. You can have demons attached. And I have spoken to a lot of different people over the years that work in this field, and they are thoroughly and utterly convinced that there's people walking around with demons attached to them. I personally have never had to experience that because it's not part of my belief system. My belief system is from a high level of love and compassion, and because of where I've been in my past lives to where I am now in this lifetime and what I've learnt in this lifetime, I don't want to, and I don't need to delve into low energy frequencies. I don't want to do that. I don't feel any kind of need to save somebody from having a demon attached to them, or that's not my journey. It's not part of my ego. It's not part of what I'm here for. But if that's part of their learning process, if they're at a level where they need to learn how to do things like that, then that's right for them. Again, it's all perception. It's all part of each person's belief system and what makes each person feel comforted by what they know. If you feel comforted believing that the moment that you conceive a child, that soul is in there, then by all means believe that, if that's what brings you comfort. Because you might, if you knew something else, it might trigger you to feel upset. So you're not going to want to listen to that. You're only going to believe what makes you feel comfortable. And I've had people say, like a little while ago, I had someone worrying about someone was dealing with black magic in the house or putting curses on people in the house. Now, when you believe things like that and it's such a low dense energy, it festers, like fear festers. It just expands. Love expands, fear expands. So if you truly believe that you're cursed or the house you live in is the energy's bad and everything like that, you're just feeding it, and you're feeding more into it. And the more you feed into fear, the more you can attract those low energies that haven't moved much higher from the earth's realm will come in. And then you do have a problem because you're just creating more and more fear. And I've spoken about this before. It's like where there's an accident on the road and people go, everyone that goes to visit, let's say someone crashes into a tree and they lose their life, and then everyone goes and visits that place where they think that person is. They don't know that their soul's gone off back to their soul family, and then they can be anywhere. They can be here, there, they can be absolutely everywhere. They sometimes get caught up in the fact that they're just there. And while they're there, they're grieving. They feel sad. They feel angry because they died. They have all these heavy emotions, and that energy stays in that area. The next person visits, the energy gets bigger. Next person visits, the energy gets bigger, until right around the whole area, you can be driving along and just feel this really, really thick, dense energy because everyone keeps adding to it. And it's exactly the same as when there is something beautiful and you're looking at a beautiful sunset and it just makes you feel glorious. You're at a lookout, and everything that happens at the lookout, everyone that is at that lookout feels good. it brings them joy, it brings them peace, it brings them love. So they expand, and then everyone else that goes there just stands there and embraces that loving energy. So can you see how energy is constantly moving? It doesn't get stuck. It's the same as when I was thinking about this and like having a talk with my guides, I was thinking also about, so why our cells in our body are constantly dying and replenishing. Like millions of cells each day die and they are replenished with new cells. So why do some cells hold disease? Like, why do we have these emotions in our life and we don't deal with them? And so we store this energy in our body and it just sits there. But we can move it, can't we? It doesn't have to. I think it's just sitting there because we're not moving it. We're not thinking about it. We're not like focused on, okay, these cells aren't sort of doing what they're supposed to be doing. Can I get them to start moving? Can I be conscious of moving this energy through my cells so it's not stale, it's not just sitting there? But it can be just stagnant, but we can move it as well. So I don't know, it's just an amazing topic. We could cover so much on this topic of energy. I'm so glad I got to experience dying and leaving my body where I could understand energy a lot more. And I was in the hospital, I was in a room, I was with my kids, I was everywhere. And I know people that have had out-of-body experiences having an operation. Even my auntie, she had an out-of-body experience when she gave birth to one of her children. And she was standing in the corner of the room looking down at her own body giving birth. She wasn't even in her body. She wasn't even engaged in her body. She was witnessing it from out of her body. So see how it can move. It can move constantly. It's constantly on the go. So interesting topic. If you've got questions around this, drop them below, because I don't know everything. I just go on what I can learn, what I can experience, and it's, yeah, when people bring up questions, it makes me think as well. So thanks again for listening to me.